8 names. Most people remember only one: Azazel, the watcher who taught mankind to beat metal into a blade, and with that blade taught us war. But Azazel never came down the mountain alone, and the sword was not the only secret that came down with him. He was one teacher among many, and each of the others carried a different lesson into the valley below. A different lock picked open on a door that heaven had shut on purpose. What they brought was not a single sin. It was a syllabus, a whole forbidden curriculum delivered to humanity one subject at a time, and the texts that name the teachers and exactly what each of them taught have survived for 3,000 years. This is the lesson plan heaven never wanted us to have. The Book of Enoch, chapter 7, verse 1, opens it. The Watchers, it tells us, took wives among the daughters of men, and taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Read that slowly, because the order matters. Before the giants were born, before the first war, the very first thing taught was magic. Spoken words meant to bend a will, and the quiet science of which root pulled from which plant could break a fever by morning, or stop a heart by that same morning. Picture the first garden where that knowledge took hold. To every other family in the world, it was a place of food and medicine, rows of green under the sun. To the family that had been taught, those same rows were an armory. Every leaf had 2 uses now. The same hand that brewed the cure could brew the poison, and only the initiated knew which cup was which. That is how the curriculum opened. Not with a fireball, not with an army, with a whisper and a leaf. The teacher of that first art was Semyaza, chief of the 200, the angel who had led the descent itself. His subject was the binding word, the enchantment that makes another person bend to a power they cannot see or fight. Think about what that introduces into a world. Before Semyaza, a strong man took what he wanted by force, and at least you could see the blow coming. After him, a man could be ruined by something worked in secret. A charm, a curse, a word said over him in the dark, and never know why his harvest failed or his child sickened. The oldest weapon was never the sword. It was the harm you cannot trace back to a hand. And then comes a detail that even people who know this list tend to read straight past. Because among these teachers, there was one whose entire subject was the cure. Chapter 8, verse 3 calls the role of the specialists one by one, and it tells us plainly, Armaros taught the resolving of enchantments, the undoing, the counterspell, the antidote to everything Semyaza had just set loose on the world. Now feel the trap close. Heaven did not send Armaros down to repair the damage. Armaros was one of the rebels, part of the same conspiracy, sworn by the same oath on the same mountain. So the hand that sold humanity the curse also sold it the cure, and both were stolen goods. If a charm was killing your son, there was now a man who could lift it, for a price, using knowledge every bit as forbidden as the curse itself. The sickness and the medicine came from the same source. That is the oldest racket on earth, and it was already running before the flood. Pick the lock, then sell the family the only key to the door you just opened. That was the first wing of the school. People turned against people in secret. The second wing was vast and colder and far more ambitious. It did not stop at the village or the kingdom. It reached all the way up to the sky and set out to sell that too. Baraqijal, the same passage tells us, taught astrology, not the simple naming of stars, the reading of them. The claim that a man's fate, his fortune, the hour he should marry or march to war, stood written overhead for anyone taught the system to decode. Imagine what that means in a world with no books, no clocks, no calendars. The one who could read the sky could tell a king the perfect day to strike. He did not even need to be right very often. He only needed to be believed. And a single right call would make his name forever. Then Kokabiel, whose domain was the constellations, the carving of the blank night into figures and beasts and signs, the grid of omens that humanity has never stopped reading since. Consider this. Thousands of years later, this very week, millions of people will check what the stars are supposedly saying about their lives before they make a real decision. That habit did not come from nowhere. The oldest texts on Earth give it a starting point and a teacher's name, and they file it under things mankind was never meant to be shown. From there, the Sky School split into specialist after specialist, each rebel handed one piece of heaven to sell back to the people below. Ezekiel took the clouds, teaching men to look up at a darkening sky and read in it not weather, but a verdict, an omen of what was coming for them. Baraqijal took the signs of the earth itself, the meaning supposedly buried in the land, in the way the ground and its creatures behaved in the hours before a disaster. Shamsiel was given the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon, its phases, its eclipses, the secret schedule the heavens seemed to keep. Picture them not as a faculty gathered in a hall, but as lone figures scattered across a dark world. One robed shape bent over roots and plants, one standing beneath a sky of burning constellations, one watching the clouds, each guarding a single stolen subject. Of all of them, the two who held the sun and the moon held something close to godhood. Imagine knowing that the sun will go dark at midday, and then standing before a terrified people as it happens, as if you yourself had reached up and snuffed it out. An eclipse foretold is an eclipse commanded, in the eyes of anyone who cannot do the math. Shamsiel and Sariel did not merely teach the sky's hidden timetable, they handed mortal men the power to stand under a dying sun and be mistaken for the one who killed it. And now you can see what the whole sky curriculum was actually for. One by one, these teachers took the things only God was meant to govern: the sun, the moon, the stars, the storms, the seasons, the line between sickness and health, and handed humanity a counterfeit key to each. Not the thing itself, never the real power, only the illusion of control over it, and the same forbidden promise underneath every lesson: you will not need heaven anymore. Read the signs yourselves, bend your own fate, be your own gods. That promise is the reason all of this was forbidden in the first place. It was never that the knowledge was useless. It was that it worked just well enough to pull mankind across a boundary it was never meant to cross, and to trade trust in the one who made the stars for the cold business of reading them. And here is the part that should have been impossible. The flood came. Genesis 7 means total destruction. Every living thing on dry land wiped out, blotted out completely. The giants drowned. The Watcher's offspring swept off the face of the earth. The water should have closed every door this school ever opened. Every teacher was gone. Every student drowned. It did not work. The Book of Jubilees, chapter 8, verse 3, picks the story back up generations after the waters fell. And there it is again, intact. A man descended from Noah's own line finds the old teaching where it had been carved into stone and hidden away, the teaching of the Watchers, and he copies it down for himself, and the forbidden curriculum walks back onto dry land in the hands of the saved. The flood drowned the teachers. It could not drown the lessons. The knowledge had been written once and buried once, and that was enough. It simply waited out the judgment underground. Sit with what that means, because it is the real horror of this episode. A giant can be killed, an army can be wiped out. A whole corrupted world can be put under water. But a secret only has to be taught once, and written once, and hidden once, to outlive every single person it was meant to die with. The Watchers understood that better than anyone. It may be the most dangerous thing they ever knew, and it is the reason their curriculum is the one piece of that drowned world that is still demonstrably with us. Because that is what should reach you, watching this now. Not one of these arts ever truly disappeared. We simply stopped calling them by their first names. Sorcery became influence. Charms became the small rituals we trust to turn our luck. Reading fate in the stars became a line you scroll past about your week without once thinking where it began. The names changed. The appetite never did. That same pull to step across the boundary, to take the key for ourselves, to control what was never ours to hold. You have almost certainly reached for one of these arts without ever knowing it had a first teacher, that the teacher had a name, and that the oldest texts on earth marked the lesson forbidden. If you want to keep following that trail, back to where these things began and forward into everything they unleashed, subscribe to History Remembered. We are walking the whole of it, one locked door at a time, because this episode leaves one door still standing open. If the curriculum had spread that far, if nearly every bloodline on Earth had been taught, corrupted, handed its stolen key, Then, when heaven finally looked down to find a single soul worth saving, what could it possibly have found? The texts give an answer that is almost unbearable in how narrow it is. Out of every family on the face of the earth, only one had been left untouched by everything the Watchers taught. One household, one uncorrupted line, in a world where the forbidden knowledge had reached nearly everyone else. His name was Noah. And that is where we go next. The old powers of that mountain were never truly destroyed. They were only buried. And the deeper you dig into the ancient world, the clearer it becomes that the lessons taught before the flood are still being learned today.